As above, so below. As below, so above. As within, so without. As without, so within. Welcome to the second principle of Hermes Trismegistus, or Hermetic Principle of the Universe. This is our second Monday in a row in our exploration in trying to understand the principles. How do they work in practice for our everyday life, and how to deal with them, how to work with them, how to use them in our advantage. After considering what the first main principle means, all is mind, the universe is mental, all is information, all is energy, today we can easily move to the principle of correspondence. What is above, so is it below. What is below, so is above. We're all convinced that we live in a world full of matter, a material world, that our bodies are objectively real, and we would find it hard to believe that they're only a dream. We're dreaming of this material world, that we are actually alive. But as Bashar says, we never leave spirit, we only dream that we have. Based on many experiments, it has been conducted that the soul is initially projected as a holographic image and builds its specific body on the basis of this image. And scientists prove that such a hologram arises even before the appearance of a complete organism. But what does this mean? Well, British physicist Professor Brian Cox said that the universe may not be as we have been taught and as everyone is used to understanding it. I will quote him. In answering the questions that Stephen Hawking asked more than 50 years ago, we came to the conclusion, yes, I will say it out loud, we are holograms. Holographic. One part of us thinks that all of this is real, the other part is an illusion. It's not real. And how does it feel to understand that you are actually a hologram, that you're not real? Well, remember the movie The Matrix. Remember Neo and the spoon bending scene with the little monk. You exist, you can play in this reality, but as above, so below. So if we learn about this interaction between the physical, the illusionary part, and the spiritual, dense, the spiritual, the energetic part, if we find and combine this interaction, then we could possibly have a adaptive and a full experience of what life is actually about, don't you think? Let's assume that we're all holograms. Let's just assume it. Every manifestation in the reality around us, everything is a hologram, like those back in the days we saw in Star Wars. And each particle contains information about the whole system, and vice versa, the whole is contained in each particle. In other words, every fish is contained in the ocean, and every drop of water in the ocean is contained in every fish and element in the ocean. But we will look at this in detail a little bit later. We know that Earth actually thinks and develops like a weed. Electron follows the principles of planetary motion, but what exactly does it all mean, and why are we holograms? Well, let's try to understand it. Holography comes from the Greek language and means holos, which means whole plus graph, write. In a sense, it means writing the whole, writing within the whole, writing with the whole. Just like writing a language of code in the whole. It's a really good metaphor, but it's reality. As such is the science that deals with forms of imaging that allowed the recording of illusionary three-dimensional images with the help of laser light. The holographic technique can also be used to store and process information. The holographic theory was created in 1947 by the Hungarian scientist Denis Gabor. As the basis of the discovery is the methodology for restoring the wave front of light. That means that holography was developed only at the beginning of the 60s after the creation of lasers, which are, as we well know, powerful source of coherent light. The laser was invented by Theodor Meinmann as the concentration and emission of intense and pure coherent light is used in all fields. We all have light around us. It can record and read sound and image from optical media. It can light fire, reproduce, embossed images and more. Waves differ from each other in their lengths, which are specific to each color. Now, this is very important to understand and get it right. When an atom receives, for example, energy from an outside source, such as, let's say, heat, its electrons absorb this energy, take it into their house, and they become excited. It's like they're inspired. They're inspired for life, like we are. They have changed and they are slightly unstable because they're not yet adapted and used to the new information, to the new energy. So they have changed, and when they return to their normal state, when their excitement has passed in a sense, they emit. However, they receive from this source form of light, and usually the holograms are in the color of the light, of the laser itself. So the first practical holograms were created by Yuri Denisuk. They could see the real color of the object that was observed, coming to the conclusion that the hologram is the memory of the interaction of the waves and the reflected object. In this way, the information around us, the information in everything, is never lost, and always the part contains the whole, and the whole is contained in the part. So everything is interconnected, intertwined, but we don't usually sense it with our senses, and we don't usually pay attention. My offer to you is to pay attention. Pay a little bit more attention to what is happening into your daily lives, because if we want to use these principles to attract our deepest desires, to create our conscious reality, and to help others become more aware and conscious of the changes that are happening right now, if we want this idea to become an everyday habit for ourselves, then we must pay attention. We must pay attention to the things and the random words people are telling when we go to the store, for example. We must pay attention to the numbers on the registration plates on the cars. We must pay attention about the sound that is around us, the voices that are around us, the music, about the lights, about the colors that we see, about the people that we meet, about the so-called coincidences. Is there actually something like coincidence? Or in Kybalion they say that coincidence is nothing different than a law that has not yet been discovered or known. It's something that you haven't fully explored. That's why you call it a coincidence, because you haven't allowed yourself to fully and deeply understand it. Because if you truly understand it, you will never inspect it from the same point of view, and you will obviously find many different aspects and angles of it that will help you create a different conclusion about what reality actually is. So remember that we talked about energy coming out of nowhere, out of the nothingness, which is split into two because it doubts itself. This energy, well, it interacts with itself. There are many different waves and frequencies in it, but they're limited in a specific range and form with a certain velocity. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to identify them if they were infinite. They are going to be just like a drop of water in the ocean. If you don't have different characteristics of the water, like gas water, or the ones that you see when you are on the beach and you see the big waves, where these are kind of different characteristics of the water. It's not all the ocean, just pure blue water, not moving, and it's all one. Well, it is all one, but everything moves, you see. Everything is, from one hand, is unique and has its own unique characteristic and perspective, and on the other hand, it contains the whole. It's a little bit of a paradox, but it is what it is. So we have two or more waves that are located in the same part of this space, and the result is interference in physics. I know it might not be pleasant for you to get in touch with these terms, but I promise you it's not as complicated as it sounds. What is interference? What about if we call it interaction? A pattern of minimums and maximums, for example bright and dark spots, is produced, which pattern always appears when energy comes out of nowhere. In this way, the waves interact. On one side, some waves subside. They cancel each other out, but on the other hand, some of them intensify as they interfere right in the middle. Right in the middle, something else happens when these waves interfere. They interact, they work together as a team. An example of this is what happens when we throw two pebbles onto a smooth surface of water. After they touch the water, two series of waves are produced that pass through each other. At the same time, in some places they are higher and in others they subside. But why do we say as above, so below? Well, as in the informational field, so in us humans. In order to answer this question, it will be necessary to examine interference in a little bit more detail, focusing on one of its specific cases, which is called diffraction. I know you've heard this one before in physics, but stay with me. It's really interesting. Diffraction is called the very deviation of the wave from its initial straight line movement. So the light moves in a trace line, and the moment it deviates, this is the diffraction of the light. So basically, with every single wave, regardless of its nature, there is diffraction. When passing through an opening, the wave changes its direction and turns the lining inside out. That's it, or we can put it in another way. The curiosity of a wave to check what's behind the barrier. The easiest explanation is that the hologram is produced by the interaction of waves that create this picture on a film. The easiest explanation probably is that the hologram is produced by the interaction of waves. Okay, so they create interferential picture on a film with a photosensitive layer. The picture looks like the circles that form when you throw a handful of pebbles on water. As soon as the poster is illuminated with a laser, the diffraction occurs and the result is a 3D image of the photographed object. Like the three-dimensionality and the illusion of reality, they are convincing. These objects are convincing, they're almost real. They're like real, when actually the imagery is visible, but it's an illusion. It tricks the mind that it's real, but it's not. The same thing happens with the energy in the informational field. Because there is a huge amount of gravity, it bounces back and passes through the grid that forms the diffraction, or the so-called diffraction grid. And when interference and diffraction are combined, the illusionary hologram appears, which is fixed and limited depending, of course, on the speed and frequency of the energy. This hologram, because it is finite and no longer infinite, it's contained in a field that is noticed, individual and unique to itself. What is obtained, we know very well, is matter. When the energy is turned upside down, because the field is unique in itself, any encounter it has with another such field is an artificial collision. This is how the unified energy manifests its so-called divided manifestations. It's like you are all of the energy, but to adapt yourself for the environment you chose to experience, for the reality you chose to shift to, you create this energetic, magnetic, gravitational field that surrounds you like a shield. But imagine around all of your world stays there forever while you are investigating and exploring your particular reality. But this is energy that's flipped from the other side, and it looks, the flipped energy transformed, looks like matter, but it's not. It's flipped energy so that it could sense your vibrations, your unique frequency, your torus around you, and it looks like matter. So everything around you is that same torus, that same hologram, that same energy that's flowing, but so fast flowing, so fluidly flowing, that we cannot with our physical brain sense it, that it's actually energy and not matter. We have trained ourselves to believe that this is hard, that this can be touched. Well, actually, there is no touch, and that's proven. These are just energy and magnetic fields that are not touching, but it looks like this. It looks as I'm holding the mouse right now, but I'm actually interacting with the gravitational and magnetic fields of this mouse and with those from my hand. That's a quite different position, isn't it? So, from the point of view of physics, the protective energy of one and the protective energy of other create identical vibrations around themselves, and of course when they interact, one repels the other. Just like before, two magnets of the same polarity, they can never touch. The same thing happens here. Same thing. So if you've watched this series called The Flash has this ability to, how did they say it? It was something like vibrating but not vibrating. There was a term. When he hits a certain high velocity, has high speed, and he can go through the wall without hitting himself. He can pass through the wall because he vibrates at a higher frequency than that of the wall, because he senses the energy, the gravitational informational field, the electrons. He sends it, he creates this like fake speed, starts to move, and then he goes higher than that, and that's why he can go through the wall. Well, we could all do that. but we've trained ourselves to forget our abilities, and we need a lot of training to learn how to do these things in our world today. But they're all around us. If everything is energy, if everything is gravitational and energetic fields, really think about it. You can actually do anything that you wish. You can attract, you can create, you can manifest everything that you want. So, because we all come from the same place, we also respond in the same way to these interactions. It is also said in the Bible, if they ask you about the sign of your father, you answer, we come from the light, which is energy, information, where the light came from itself. It rests appearing in their image, a field retained image of a hologram. If you're asked for your identity, for your essence, answer, we are his sons and the living Father's chosen. Who is the living Father? The one who is creating and experiencing reality, who is consciously choosing their next explorations, my friends. The chosen from the living Father, it means that our choices are here and now. The living Father who lives in the now. From the entire informational potential, we select, we cut off a zone of limitation of current, frequency and vibration, and carry out thought, manifestation and action. And if they ask you about the sign of your father, answer movement and rest. Because everything is always moving, everything is always vibrating. Ancient Hermetics regarded this principle as one of the most important mental tools to have a look over the barriers of reality itself. This principle gives us knowledge of the harmony of life, what's behind the duality of life, what's behind the plus and the minus. And also it shows us that everything is from the same source. The same laws, principles and characteristics apply to each and every one of us. In Kybalion, they divide them into the great physical, the great mental and the great spiritual level. But trust me on this one, this is done for a better and easily understanding. If we have to speak precisely, this is an arrangement, because the levels themselves flow into each other and cannot be graded, because all three are of equal importance. And if I have to quote, the atom of matter, the unit of force, the mind of man, then the essence of archangel are merely degrees on the same scale, and essentially they all represent the same thing. The difference being only in the degree and the speed of vibration, as we talked about the flash. They are all creatures of the whole and exist only in the infinite mind of the whole. Always mind, the world is mental, everything is energy, everything is vibration, all is one and the one is all, and the all is contained in the one simultaneously in the eternal now. Because everything is happening in the same time. Do you really understand this? If everything is happening at the same time, this information that is around us, well, we could access it at any time. And think about this deeply. Do we not actually access it at the same time, at all the time? Because how do you live your life if you are without this information? Maybe most of us are unconscious of the help that we have that's all around us, about this global energetic informational field full of energy and bits of information at high speed, and all we need to do is allow it, train our minds to receive more and more information, to operate in these levels, to compress this information through meditation, for example, guided meditation, through sound healing, through some form of practice that works for you. And just to keep on doing that and see what is our uniqueness about, to see how do we correspond with this principle, to see what is our above and our below, to see what is our current task on the planet, to see how, once we learn how to contain this information, how to get it in a sense, to learn how to give it to the world, to learn how to give your present to other and serve humanity in a way that will not be repeated, because remember, there is no one like you. You are a unique element of the whole universe, and that's why you're important. That's why you matter. So dive deep into your own thoughts, write them on a note, write them in your notebooks, and just analyze what are yours, what are your ways to access this information. Keep in mind that for many people it works with different tools. Some use tarot cards, others use human design, others use meditation, but others use prayers. But find your way. My way is meditation. I could show you my way in future episodes, but find your way. And when you access this information, when you realize that you are part of a much bigger and beautiful whole, hold there and then download the knowledge and give it to others. Because as Bashar says, the present that is given to you is not for you. It's for others who are waiting for their present to be delivered by you. You are just the channel, the one who receives information, understands it, consciously knows the process that is happening, and as above so below, gives it to the manifested world and the people who need it the most. And how do we find the people that will need it the most? Well, if we trust that everything happens for a reason, that everything is synchronicity, well, the moment you get a certain information, you will know why it was there, to who you should give it to, how should you approach to it, and so on. And the reverse is true. The moment someone comes to you, you will know that it's time to get some information or to find certain connection. Because if it appears in your reality, it's not a coincidence. It's something you need to pay attention to, that's connected to your current choice and desire. Remember that. So all of this overlaps with everything that we've looked today, from energy, information, philosophical and physical level. People like Buddha and Marcus Aurelius say that we are what we think, and all that arises with our thoughts, we create our world. And as you can feel and see, these universal principles, hermetic, they begin to overlap and complement each other. This is because they are not divided from the whole. They are intertwined into the whole and flow into each other. Each and every principle. It's like principle number 2 adds to principle number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Principle number 7 adds to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And each and every one of those principles is like a different frequency of the same song that's being played. The same eternal song of existence itself. And what is existence, we might ask? Well, let's start with non-existence. For example, the funny thing is that if we think about non-existence itself, it simply doesn't exist, because the definition of non-existence is that it doesn't exist. It's not existing. It's no existence. So everything else that remains is existence. Just to massage your minds and brains there. Thank you for watching. What's above, so below. As above, so below. As below, so above. As within, so without. As without, so within. What's inside is actually outside, and what's outside is actually inside. These are our little steps that we take on the road of mastery and conscious creators of reality itself as minds of eternity. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate that I have the opportunity in 21st century to sit here in my office and to talk freely about all of these interesting topics. It's a real honor for me and a dream come true. I'll see you next Monday. Cheers for now.